Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Farah Gina Condor. In her work as a clinical naturopathic nutritionist and DNA nutrigenomics practitioner, Farah has most angles covered when it comes to optimal health. She takes us in this episode through what to look out for if you think you may be in perimenopause, and a full detailed rundown on what she has done throughout her perimenopause and indeed continues to do post-menopause to feel great, including advice on detoxes, what to ask for in a blood test, top sleep tips, and the significance of your vaginal microbiome. Hi Farah, how are you?
Hi Hattie. Yes, all well. Other than the tech issue, I'm all fantastic. Really good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Would you like to start just straight off with a little bit about yourself, your family, perhaps where you grew up, so that listeners get a sense of who you are?
Sure. So my name is Farah. What I do for a living is I'm a clinical nutritionist, but I also am a certified nutrigenomics practitioner, which means that I look at DNA and how compounds in food actually affect health, human health. And I personalize that to people. So I'm also clinical in the sense that I do blood testing, vaginal microbiome testing, gut testing. So what I do is very much based on evidence rather than just, this is really good for you to eat, and so therefore you should eat it. It's much more about who are you, Hattie? Who are you, Farah? And let's get to grips with what you're made of and how you're genetically made up. And from that, then personalize stuff to you. Me, myself, I'm actually a milkshake of a background. So I have Pakistani heritage on one side, Indian heritage on the other. On the Indian side, it's half Indian and half South African, Persian. It's a real milkshake of things. It means I have a lot of, I suppose, different cultural influences. So, when we talk about things like golden milk, people talk about golden milk now. Well, I've been having golden milk tea since I was a child. Turmeric has always been a compound that's been used in the family for, if you've got a cold or if you're feeling unwell. And then I've got the Persian influences. But I was actually born in Mozambique, and Mozambique is obviously an African country, but it was a Portuguese colony at the time. So I've got the European, Portuguese, kind of Mediterranean part of it from growing up in a country that was pretty much Portuguese, colonized. And also the African part of it so a lot of the African food influences exist as well. And then I worked in Thailand for 6 months. And so I've got a lot of knowledge about Thai food. So multicultural, kind of global person, really. And if anybody normally asks me, Hattie, where am I from? I usually say the human race. I can't say I've got a particular affinity because I'm kind of close to a lot of them in a lot of different ways. So, yeah.
How fantastic. I want to come and eat at your house.
You're welcome anytime. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. I mean, your food must be just heavenly. And then with your background knowledge as well, how did you get into such a very niche nutrigenomics?
It's like taking the compounds that you find in different types of foods and actually looking at what each of those compounds do. So if I tell you about cruciferous vegetables, for example, Hattie, and lots of people will say, oh, what do cruciferous vegetables do and why are they so good for women in menopause or for hormonal balance? That's because lots of cruciferous vegetables contain a compound called sulforaphane, and sulforaphane allows your body to produce something called DIM, and that actually allows you to get rid of excess estrogen that's sitting around in your body causing havoc and trouble. I got fascinated by the fact that, I always believe that people are individuals, and being an individual means that you've got an individual body and individual genetic makeup, and therefore, literally you should look at people, not just everyone can eat cruciferous vegetables. But in my own clinic, so I kind of wear two hats. So I've got Integrity Nutrition and Health, which is my own clinic. And then additionally, I choose to work with Screen Me, a company which is led by women for women and pushes women's health through the ages. So actually one of the biggest things that I do in terms of my clinical nutritionist as lead clinical nutritionist at Screen Me is look at women's health consistently. So from, I would say, when you start to be, I suppose, sexually active, or from 18, 15, 18, whatever, to postmenopausal, when you've finished your menopause and, you're at the other end of it. So there I do things like specific menopause hormone marker testing and use some of the other tests in conjunction with that as well. So there are two hats, in my integrity nutrition and health, which is my clinic. I tend to do a lot of DNA testing, but with the women's health, I tend to do less unless there is a specific reason why, they'd want to do it, basically. Yeah.
Whereabouts are you in terms of perimenopause?
I'm post-menopause, lucky me. But my menopause was the start of my transition, obviously, as it is with everybody. And it marked the time when I got the worst of my symptoms. So as everybody else, at the time when I was first going through it, I had no idea. I had given up my corporate career and I just started studying nutrition. Clinical nutrition was a next step. I was just studying naturopathic nutrition at the time. But I knew that for sure, from just learning anatomy and physiology and knowing my O-level biology, that my ovaries were reducing the production of estrogen and that my eggs were coming to an end, if you like, So for me, it lasted about 6 to 7 years, but a lot of women, it can take about 5 to 10 years or even more to actually get through from the first kind of signs of symptoms to perimenopause to postmenopause. Mm-hmm. Mine started at 42 and I was going through hell. I can't tell you what hell it was. It was heavy bleeding. You said no holds bars, Hattie, so I'm going to give
100%.
A whole lot. Heavy bleeding, clotting, exhaustion, brain fog, hot flashes. And at the time I was studying to become a nutritional therapist. So what I did was I took the knowledge that I was learning as I went along, basically, and applied the knowledge as I went along. And together with that, we were taught to do research. So I started doing a little bit of research on hormones, endocrine systems, how stress hormones affect other hormones, how hormones are produced, and really went deep into really understanding what it was that was happening in my body. And my research actually enabled me to draw up a plan for myself. And that, together with the blood results that I had from my GP at the time, I just went to my GP and said, I don't feel well and I need to do something about this. And I don't want to take tablets and I don't want to go on the pill and I don't want to have HRT. So help. It was a female GP. I was lucky. She was very open to giving me, a full MOT, if you like, and test for my hormones and test for my nutrients and test for my inflammation markers and my thyroid. And it's very much more difficult to get that now. For a lot of women, you can go to your GP and they can just say, no, we can't do that, but we'll just test your estrogen, testosterone and progesterone. And you sort of sit there and you think, well, I don't really know what that's going to help me with. At some points in life, that's not enough. You need to do AMH and LH and FSH and all sorts of other things. The markers are really crucially important at different stages of a woman's life. But I never looked back from that moment. I started overweight, tired, miserable, getting into a point where I was thinking, oh my God, life is at an end because now I'm just getting old and, I'm menopausal. And as most women do, they kind of go, oh my God, and you start struggling with diets and you start doing these ridiculous cabbage soup diets, or you go and you do, the low, don't eat any carbohydrates diet, or you go to keto diet, which puts too much stress on your liver if you do it for too long. But I was tired all the time. I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I didn't sleep at all for the whole night. And then I had to go to work. I had aches and pains, like just non-descriptive aches and pains of the sort I never had before. I just felt really rubbish. So when I put the plan together, I started implementing the plan on myself. And this was kind of an experiment. I kind of tend to, Hattie, experiment on myself before I recommend it to others. Mm-hmm. See if it works. So I made the changes and I started to do a different type of exercise. I started looking at my sleep hygiene and making sure that I was doing the right things in terms of, when I went to bed, low lighting, allowing my production of my melatonin to happen on its own rather than rely on something to make me go to sleep. Implementing stress management. So, obviously, there are lots of stresses in life with women. It's not, some women are working full time, they're going home, they're taking care of a family, they've got elderly parents they're taking care of, their husbands strain on them. And, then they want to go out and spend time with their friends. And that's another pressure in the end, on the basis that they have so much else going on. And it does become something of a sort of mountain that you think you can't climb. Having finished and graduated, become a naturopathic nutritionist, I then started focusing on the clinical side. So I thought, well, do I have to go to the doctor to get the blood tests? And what about if people can't go to the doctor? Or if the doctor, it's a postcode lottery, as they say on the NHS here, and up north, you may not be able to get that sort of help that you can here. And wealthier people can just go and get a private blood test. But if you can't afford a private blood test and you're going through that kind of thing, it's horrendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely horrendous. So I trained as a phlebotomist so I could take bloods. And then I did my nutrigenomics, my DNA testing. And then I married all that together. So the science side of it married the sort of natural side of it. And then I kind of started doing that and saying, let me look at this, let me actually implement and see what's happening it. So firstly, many women don't know when it's starting to happen to them. So going right back, I would say, if you're having anything like longer or shorter cycles, or your cycle becomes unpredictable, so 1 month you do get it, another you don't, or it comes 10 days and then you have 10 days of bleeding and then you have 3 months of nothing, or if it's heavier, if you have clots, if you have hot flashes, if you start to have vaginal dryness during intercourse, if you have trouble sleeping or staying asleep, if your breasts hurt, desire wanes and you just don't want to be intimate at all, weight gain, without even you eating more than you usually would, not you're not stuffing yourself and you're not really eating unhealthy, but you just keep on putting weight, and mood swings. Interestingly, 2 in 10 women will get diagnosed with clinical depression in menopause. That's a lot of women.
It is a huge amount.
Right.
Is that a correct diagnosis, or is that all part of the perimenopause process?
I think it's processed, because if you look at the way that the NHS works, they've got standard protocols. So if you go to them with a specific problem, there's a way in which you go through the system. Right. And so that's probably, the kind of looking at the mental health, emotional health status is part of what they do. But the key thing to remember is that you don't have to go through hell. I did start the whole process going through hell. And then because I did all these different things, my hell turned more into a nicer journey of discovery of myself, really. Like, I'm no angel. I like pizza, I like wine. I have a G&T, I like desserts and sweets. I'm not particularly sweet tooth, but I like it. When I go out to dinner, I'll always have a dessert. But what I did was I changed the process in terms of having it all the time. I changed it to having it as a treat. Okay, so 30% of the time, I satisfy my emotional and desires need for all those lovely things that, you think are really unhealthy. But it's not that 30% that's going to impact on you. It's the other 70% of the time. And most of the women that I would start working with at the beginning are the other way, 70-30.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing the treat 70% of the time, and 30% of the time they're going, oh God, I've got to eat vegetables today, or I've got to eat something healthy, or I've got to feed my body what it needs. But that's just one of the things, right? It's much more complex than that. Firstly, there are different forms of estrogen. Some are bad, some are not bad. There's also the fact that even menopause happens to younger women. Either they've got early menopause, which is called premature ovarian insufficiency. I can never say that word. And that can actually lead to much, much younger women actually going into menopause. Or if you have, injury or illness, so you have to remove your organs, or if you've got cancer of one of the organs and stuff like that, that can also take you there. So menopause is, we think it's mainly older women, but actually affects quite a lot of women.
So as well as doing 70-30 for desserts, for example, what else are you doing that has worked for you?
Okay, so it's what I did and it's what I still do. Okay, I'm postmenopause, but actually I still implement a lot of the things that I started to implement in my perimenopause. As I said, that horrendous journey turned into something of a revival of me, my vitality, my health, my energy, my strength, and my emotional balance, which completely changed. Okay. I've got a video that I sometimes show people and say, look, this was me at the beginning of my journey, and this is me now. And that was something from my early 40s to my 50th birthday. It's actually on my website and it's actually on my Instagram account. So if anybody wants to look at it, they can. But basically, it's me at my worst, having this kind of really lethargic look on my face, looking miserable. My eyes are all kind of dull, no shine, my hair is really thin and a bit wispy and not great. And I'm huge, and not huge from being fat, but huge, puffed up like somebody's, gone. with one of those bicycle pumps or something. But, just feeling really, really miserable. So, as I said, knowing my DNA SNPs, there are a couple of that are really, really important, was really the first step. So, I used to eat a lot of vegetables when I was in that state, cruciferous vegetables, because I was told that they were really good for you and that they would get rid of excess estrogen and rebalance your hormones. Only when I did my DNA testing, I found that I have a SNP that actually means that I don't have the gene that produces the enzyme. An enzyme is something that breaks things down in the body, that produces the enzyme to break down cruciferous vegetables.
Wow.
But then I'm eating them and they're staying in my gut and they're fermenting. So no wonder I'm bloated. And so no wonder I'm not really feeling really, really good. And because I can't extract the energy from them and I can't break them down, I'm eating them and they're just not doing anything. They're not breaking down. The worst thing about it is that I'm not even extracting the sulforaphane that's in them. And that's the compounds. That's the beauty, is knowing what is in that food that's actually going to do the world of good. So the sulforaphane wasn't even being absorbed. So I was eating these. They were making me bloated and miserable because there were no enzymes to breaking it down. And I wasn't even getting the benefit of it. I found I had another SNP, which is called methylation MTHFR SNP. So that was COMT. And then there's another gene. So the body has something called the methylation process. And the methylation process is the absorption of B12s, B9s, folate, that kind of thing. And again, because I had a methylation issue, because my MTHFR gene had a SNP in it, basically what it meant was that I would struggle to absorb B vitamins. And B vitamins are actually crucial for every cell in the body, including hormones. So this basically meant that I was unable to inactivate any harmful estrogens. So without going to sort of too much science, because it can get a bit boring, it just means that because I had that SNP, I don't produce an enzyme called COMT, which is the catechol oxygen methyltransferase enzyme, which actually helps me to neutralize volatile molecules. Volatile molecules being stuff you don't want to have. It's like volatile people. You don't really want them around you. And that's really something that you do through your liver detoxification. Now, a lot of people do detoxes. So yes, I would recommend detoxes, but unfortunately, people do detoxes without proper guidance. So I do a detox once a month, probably for a couple of days, not every month. I try to do it once a month just to clean my system for 2 or 3 days. And basically, that kind of detox requires proper guidance. Because what you're doing when you're detoxing, Hattie, is you're actually releasing something called free radical molecules. And those free radicals, if you don't do the right things to get rid of it in your phase 2 detoxification process in your liver, you're just ending up reabsorbing them.
Right.
And so therefore you're causing your body further issues, if not more stress, and it's getting worse and worse. So a lot of people will kind of go, oh my God, I've detoxed and I've gone off alcohol and I've gone off wine and I've gone off coffee and I've gone off everything for 3 days and I feel really, really bad. And they feel really, really bad. And that's okay because the body's cleansing itself and you're getting those free radicals to kind of be loose. And then what you're supposed to do is kind of go, okay, now they're all loose. Let's get them out. And unfortunately, what tends to happen is that people don't do that bit and they go back in. And so you're perpetuating a problem. So yes, I would say detox, but do it under guided proper care. You can get places where you can get, a whole week of juices for detoxification. But do they come with instructions? Do they tell you exactly what you're supposed to be doing? Are you supporting your liver in order to be able to do that process properly? How do you support your liver to be able to do that process properly? At which point should you be doing that through the actual detoxification process? Those things are crucially important. Yeah. The other thing I do is exercise. But I say exercise, I mean best exercise. I mean movement. I mean not go to the gym twice a week. I mean every single day do 15 minutes of movement, because the accumulation of 15 minutes a day over the 7 days is going to have much more of an impact than twice a week. On the basis that you're getting regular oxygen intake by doing exercise, you're increasing your oxygen intake, your heart is getting a workout, and you're also getting blood flow. I know my body is genetically better on slow, long exercise because I did my genetic test. So therefore, I used to do aerobics, okay? And aerobics and any high impact exercise actually gets your body to release cortisol hormone, which is the stress hormone. So if you look at when you're younger, being in a slight state of inflammation, which is what exercise does, it sends you into a state of inflammation for a little while. That's great because you then recover from that and then you can go back to getting the benefits of that slight inflammation. The problem is that we, as we get older, we tend to be in inflammation already in the menopause, and there are lots of issues going on. And to have high impact exercise, unless you're an athlete or somebody who's really done that all your life at a high level, you need to be reviewing that exercise. The DNA test for me just led me to doing long, slow exercise. So I do very long walks, or I'll go for a cycle ride, which is not a high impact exercise, but I'm still getting the blood flow. I'm still getting, so I'm not doing fast, intense HIIT, which a lot of women do to lose weight, but then they're counteracting all of that because the minute they stop doing it, bang, it goes back to normal. Just the same as when you diet, you're slowing your system down because your metabolic rate goes right down. So the minute you start eating normally, your system is still slow, but you're now eating the same as you used to eat before you went on that diet. So it's a yo-yo process. So I think exercise, movement, if you think more movement and you think less go to the gym and sit indoors somewhere and do something high intensity, but also look at what's right for you. For me, increasing my cortisol, doing high intensity exercise didn't work. For me, doing yoga, doing Pilates, going for long walks, going swimming, going cycling, those things work.
And the added benefit of being outside walking or cycling, you get the oxygen, the greenery, general fresh air, mind clearing as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, going for a walk in the woods or go up, climb up a hill, it's seeing it as a pleasure rather than a necessity. I actually enjoy it. And if I want to get active, then I don't go to the gym and do a HIIT session. I stick some really rocking music on my Bose, speaker thing. And I just have a good old boogie in my apartment. I just kind of, go mad a bit. And that's fun. And I love it and I enjoy it. And so it's not stressing me out. And yet I'm moving more actively than I would if I was going for a walk.
Ideally, exercise is something pleasurable and not a punishment.
Absolutely. Well, it should be. And lots of people see it as a kind of, oh my God, I really don't feel like it. I should go to the gym. And, I've heard my friends saying, oh my God, it's gym night and I really don't fancy it. And I just go, just put some music on and have a laugh, dance to music and just, do your exercise at home. I don't ever go to a gym, but if I want to actually work out my, flappy wing arms, I just do that on my sofa. Sleep and blue light filters. These are all my big tips, Hattie. So, make notes. Low lighting seasonally. Obviously, in winter, it gets lighter earlier. Just make sure that you're not switching on masses of lights, going into the evening past sort of 5, 6 o'clock. Lower the lighting in your apartment or house or whatever. And try not to switch on lights when you go to bed. So a lot of people will lower it, sit in their sitting room, whatever. And then as they go to bed, they switch on the landing light and they literally stop the melatonin production just as they're going to bed. And that, of course, can affect your melatonin production and therefore your quality of sleep. The last thing they'll do is sit in bed and look at their phone for 10 minutes. Well, if they don't have a blue light filter on there, then that's also going to be affecting your melatonin production. So again, it's really worth noting that on my computer, I have a set thing that brings on the nighttime blue light filter and lowers the actual screen depth of color from whenever sunset is. So it's actually based on the time of the season. It automatically changes it at the time when the sun is supposed to be setting. That's a really good thing to do. You can do it manually if you don't have it on your system. You can get screen filters. So, if you have a mobile phone and you have an old one, you can get some things that you put on the front of it and it just cuts out the blue light, or you can get blue light glasses. And these things are not expensive, but they are really, really worthwhile because they can help to improve your sleep massively. Okay. Blood testing. So I do my annual blood test. So if I can't get it with my GP, I go to Screen Me and I do my annual blood testing. I do all my hormones. I do, obviously, hormones appropriate to menopausal or postmenopausal women, not that I don't do, how many eggs have I got left? Because clearly I'm way past that. But I do my minerals, I do my vitamin levels, and I do my inflammation markers. So I know, is there inflammation going on? If I feel that I need to do my thyroid, I also do my thyroid. And generally, sometimes a lot of women in menopause do have thyroid problems. There's a lot of times when, because of the thyroid, a lot of the other problems are compounded by the fact that there's something going on with their, thyroid hormones. I mean, I'm going through some tips, but I hope I'm just going to keep going until you tell me to shut up. Vaginal testing with Screen Me. So vaginal microbiome is a fairly new thing, but it's been around, but not many people have a vaginal microbiome test that's, for me, this is the best one on the market and I use it. The reason why I use it is because it actually keeps me in check with what's going on with my vaginal microbiome. My personal choice is not to have a smear test because I don't like the thought of somebody scraping the skin in my vagina, causing injury to it. So white blood cells flood it. And then if it doesn't repair properly, then that's going to differentiate or cause, that's my own personal thing. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination, Hattie, that people don't go for their smear test at all. Okay, that's just me. But I do have my vaginal microbiome testing. And the reason why is because that's a preventative measure. So at the point at which you're doing your vaginal microbiome testing, which is literally a little swab, like you did when we had, I'm not going to say that word, but when we had that, you did a little swab, you send the test off, and it puts you in a state type group. And depending on the state type group that you are, you actually will know whether you're predisposed to UTIs or HPV or even cancer cells coming up or vaginosis or anything like that. And then you can do things both food wise and you can do things with supplements to help yourself. Finally, but not the last one, but it is the last one, is the endocrine disrupting chemicals. So I only use Tropic Skincare. I'm an ambassador for Tropic. And the reason why I'm an ambassador for them is simply because it works. Okay, I'm 55. I've got no makeup on. And I find that I don't have wrinkles. My skin is really clear. I don't have age spots because I use all their summer stuff that actually prevents age spots and allows you to be in the sun. There's no chemicals on the sun tan lotions that they've got. There's no chemicals on their body washes. It's all very natural, and that's brilliant. So the reason why endocrine disruptors are really so severe is because they basically can take the space of where your receptor for the hormone is blocked with an endocrine disruptor, meaning that your estrogen or whatever can't connect with its receptor, so it can't do whatever it needs to do in the body. So you want to really avoid endocrine disruptors in your home, in your skincare, in your body care and everything else. Tropic are an ethical company. They do things right. They've got green credentials. They support women's education in third world countries. And aside from that, I think they're great at offering women financial freedom to work around family commitments. And there's not a lot of firms that do that. So I think it's a brilliant firm, and that's why I support them. There are other places out there that do lots of endocrine disrupting, chemical free stuff. By the way, just so that people know, organic does not necessarily mean chemical free. Just look out for things. If you don't know the name of the ingredient, it's very highly unlikely that it's totally natural. Always look at the ingredients. Check what you're eating and putting in your body. Starting to summarize, Hattie, for me, spending money on my body and health is far more important than decorating it or dressing it. Yes, I want to look nice. And yes, I do love clothes. I've always loved fashion. But if I have to pay £150 for my vaginal microbiome test versus go and buy a new dress, I'll buy a new dress next month. I've got plenty of dresses in my wardrobe. My body is the only one I have to live in. And, I'm not being funny. Yes, you can get new parts, but they're a little bit hard to come by. They're not that easy, and they themselves come with additional problems, right? I've had it quite easy, really, compared to a lot of my counterparts. But that's because I've implemented all these things, and that's not turned me into a boring, angelic, reverent kind of person. It's just me, but me in an improved version, if you like. You have to put the work into it, A lot of people just want a quick answer. We could have a whole session on HRT, but we don't have enough time. Stop going to Dr. Google. Dr. Google, there's a lot of people selling stuff and they just want the sale. They're not really interested in helping you. They might, misrepresent the facts. They might not be scientific. They might not be really, referring to the current, most recent studies. There's a lot of that going on with HRT. There's a lot more information now. I think the most common thread really with all the women that I speak to is really that they do turn to HRT, but they turn to HRT because they've already got to the point where they can't cope. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you do a lot of these things, when you start to see those symptoms that I actually mentioned at the beginning, if you start then the likelihood that you'll have to turn to something like HRT is much lower. And then HRT becomes only for the really, really severe cases. And then HRT comes with its own things. So if you've got certain genes, you shouldn't be taking HRT because there's a lot of estrogen in it. There's bioidentical, there's body identical, there's synthetic HRT, and body bio and normal HRT are all different in terms of, are they good for you or are they appropriate for you personally? And remember that even if you're an HRT, you can still make those natural changes.
Brilliant range of information and advice, Farah. Thank you so much. What would be the most valuable lesson that menopause has taught you?
For me personally, Hattie, menopause is a chance to be free of worry. Menopause is a chance to be not worrying about your periods, not worrying about, I can't do that exercise, or I can't wear that, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. Menopause for me has been, because of all the things that I've implemented and done, has been a time full of vitality and full of energy and full of, I feel better now. I'm 55. I feel better now than I did in my 30s. I feel now that I'm 30, and in my 30s, I felt like I was 60. I don't struggle with energy problems. So my advice to women is, instead of thinking of it as a negative, take the perspective that actually this is your chance to, if you want to recreate yourself, recreate yourself. You can be whatever and whoever you want. It's a process of change. It's a process of transition. And if we can take that process of transition and make it a really positive experience for ourselves by allowing ourselves the space, we can live a really, really strong and happy, contented and fulfilled life. Full stop.
Thank you very much, Farah. It's been a pleasure to meet you. You can find Farah at integritynutritionandhealth.com and on Instagram, integrity_nutrition_and_health. I will leave all her details and spellings on the show notes. Follow us on the podcast app of your choice and sign up to our newsletter to stay up to date with all the new episodes and a few extras as well. Simply go to the website realmenopausetalk.com, scroll down and click subscribe. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.